meteorologist Ian Kowalski, based out of Grand Junction, Colorado. And if you're in Colorado anywhere, you know what kind of week it's been. A record-setting week all across the western slope and over towards the Front Range. No matter where you went, man, it just didn't feel like spring so far. A lot of the times we even got in the upper 80s. Some people even locally here in Grand Junction got up to 90 degrees on their personal weather sensors. The airport got up to 88 yesterday. Today, for the record, is the 26th. I made sure to look down this time so I didn't mess up the day. But overall on this Thursday, we are coming off of some of the highest temperatures we've ever seen across Colorado. And not just here in Grand Junction, but over towards Denver, Springs, Fort Collins, the Front Range. No one's been able to escape this, and that has meant a lot of melting snow. A lot of skiers are really disappointed because not only has ski season been ending early, a lot of places, including here at Powderhorn Mountain Resort in Grand Junction, have closed earlier than they would have liked because all the slopes have just been reduced to mud for the most part because all that snow has started to melt. I'll show you the numbers on that later on in the show, but we're going to talk first about a little bit more weather nationally, too. Because while it's been incredibly dry here in the American Southwest, its western portion of Colorado, and all across Colorado, because of this dominant heat dome moving over towards the east as we speak, so starting to leave our area, especially once we get into next week. It's been a very different story for portions of the West Coast, and more specifically, all the way out in the ocean towards Hawaii, where they've seen record rainfall. And I just thought this was a good point to talk about in terms of introducing our story of the weather for the week. Where much of the continental United States has remained dry up until this point, we are seeing a shift where all this high pressure is starting to move east, and that means there's shifts over towards the Pacific, too. At the same time, what moves here, weather is really a global phenomenon. You just can't see it all the time. What shifts here, of course, causes shifts over towards the west, and it's opening it up towards a whole lot more moisture that's been built up over time. And that has meant record rainfall for many of the islands. Most places were averaging in around 5 to 10 inches of rainfall, but locally, up to 30 inches, over 2 feet of rain, if you can believe that, with only a couple days period of that storm. So it's not only a lot of rain, but over a very quick period of time. Even high traffic areas, places with a lot of tourism, like Honolulu, broke their daily records in terms of that precipitation. So there really hasn't been too many storms to compare to this, especially at least in the most recent couple of years in this time of March. So we're going to take a look at Hawaii real quick, and then we're going to take another look at national weather when we come back from this pack.
The cleanup is now underway across parts of Haleiwa and Waialua. But for many families, the memories of Friday morning are still fresh.
Scariest night of my life.
Dude, can't even really get my brain around it still.
Yeah.
That it happened.
They woke up just after 1 a.m. to water rushing into their bedrooms.
Within 5 minutes, it was to hear and then to hear
yeah,
very
I was gonna say
quickly.
above me, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh God, okay guys, we gotta go.
They went to higher ground on a laundry area next to the home and waited hours as floodwaters continued to rise. At daybreak, help finally arrived.
Finally at 7, we heard someone yelling anyone need help? And we were like, help, help. And so
We need help.
yeah, and so 2 guys came on their surfboards and we paddled out of here through our neighborhood, through all the houses.
Cars were destroyed, homes filled with thick mud. And for many, the trauma is still setting in.
And within half an hour, it was already waist high. And we didn't have, by the time the warning was issued on our phones, the water was already here. So that came in quite late. And the only way we could escape was on a backhoe because the water was just so high.
Well, you could see the long line of cars behind me, hundreds, if not thousands of people coming out, volunteering their time today to help the Haleiwa to Mokuleia community, especially here for the Longbridge community, where nearly every single home was damaged.
People I didn't even know that I didn't even organize to come here are just walking up what can we do? How can we help? Not knowing. She was like, you didn't know those people? I was like,
Yeah,
no.
I was like, I
and
don't know
they
either.
cleared out all of the debris from in front of our house.
I've cried 2 times already today because so many people have come to help and we're we don't even know these people. And so it just really shows how beautiful this community is.
Many want more government resources.
I don't think I've ever been more proud of my community in my life. This is even worse than it was 4 years ago. all I see is people helping people. But that does beg the question, why is it only the community up here? I'm anticipating that the state is going to declare a disaster, which means that we will have access to FEMA monies. But because of how FEMA has been operating over the last couple of years, it may be some time before we get that money. So we're going to have to expend state dollars in order to help us recover from this.
He made it clear more help is needed.
We're going to need plumbers, electricians, carpenters. We're going to need monetary donations. There are people that are underinsured, there are people that are uninsured, and we have to make sure that those families are taken care of.
Councilmember Matt Wire said seeing the area is heartbreaking.
You see the community in there working, right? All dirty, helping people get out, get stuff out, and you see just trash everywhere. Regardless of whose fault it is, the city wasn't prepared for a response that was needed.
Donation drop-offs are at Haleiwa Distillery at the Sugar Mill and Waialua Community Gym across from the Haleiwa Post Office. Potable water is also available there too. Nikki Schoenfeld, KHON2 News, working for Hawaii.
Just devastating images coming out of Hawaii right now. But across the continental United States, we're actually looking at a very different picture, a very big contrast to that record-setting flooding, and unfortunately, communities that have seen a lot of flood water that's made it very difficult to recover so far. It's going to take time, weeks, months, to get back to what normal looks like. Here in the southwestern portion of the United States, the continental United States, we're adjusting to what many are worried might be kind of a new normal in terms of this is the second year in a row where we've seen a lot of drought. And this year has really been the biggest, the warmest, the driest thus far, just because of one zone of high pressure that just will not go away. Here behind me in the blue, rotating around Texas, Arizona, New Mexico, down towards the Mexico border, you can see here on our map. What we really have to question is, okay, what is causing this, and are we going to see any shifts on our forecast in the long term? So the good news is that we are moving out of this La Nina pattern, which typically favors much drier days, especially here in Colorado, and moving towards that El Nino, and which is going to be much better for more heavier rainfall across much of the intermountain area of the United States. But the issue that we come across at the same time is the timing of that, because we still are seeing at the very start of spring these record-setting highs where really nothing comes close to it. We've usually see a lot of our records in the upper 70s, but we've been hitting the mid 80s here in Grand Junction. So there's not, again, a real point of comparison for what we're seeing right now, just in terms of how many days in a row we're breaking those records. We're getting on to days 7 and 8 as we come into today in a row of breaking daytime high records, and there's no precipitation to back that up. So the good news is that change is coming. We just need it to come early enough so we don't get to the summer where we've already run out of the water reserves and reservoirs that we already have. The Midwest looks very different from the Southwest, though. Take a look at this. There's a stationary front here. It's the red and the blue. You're going to see up above me on this chart. Different from the cold front. Basically, the difference between those two is that when you see that cold front coming down, there's less resistance. That heated air is getting pushed up into the air. You know, you see the normal precipitation, or at least changes in temperatures. It's a bit dry out here, of course, so you're not seeing much rainfall to back that up. But when you look at that stationary front over towards the Midwest here, that's a bit different. That's because the cold and the warm air are running into each other, and of course it's becoming stationary. It's not seeing a lot of movement with that frontal pattern, so that's why you see a more persistent line of storms that we're going to take a look at here in a moment that keep developing into the Midwest, leading to severe weather concerns. We'll also take one more look at Hawaii here as we kind of paint our national picture of what's been happening these last few days here. This is Hawaii, right? You'll notice that, again, this ridge here is moving on over further towards the east. And some of this colder air, that's generally speaking where you're going to see that extra moisture come from, some of that extra rain that's been introduced, again, causing that very devastating flooding across all of the islands here. It's getting pushed out of the way here. So let's take a look at kind of how this flow develops. This ridge is building up here. You see this orange circle. I'll put it right here in the middle of my screen. This right here. It's a ridge, it's a zone of high pressure, it's the same thing. And so it's starting to move under that area, so that's good. You know, there's still certainly rainfall possible in there. However, that is the kind of shift you want to see. You want to move to a much drier pattern after you see, again, those multiple rounds of flooding here. across the islands in Hawaii. So again, let's bring it back to the Midwest here, because this is our big point of contention with those rain, with those storms, because we're seeing a severe weather outbreak ongoing as I'm recording this. This is on Thursday, of course, at about 4:56 p.m. on the 26th. And what that is going to mean is we're kind of seeing the earlier start of this system as it moves further down towards the south here. Again, all this drier air, that's that warm air, the red part of the stationary front, running into this moisture air coming from the north, the much cooler north. And those two running into each other, basically you have those two different air masses. And as they collide, that warmer air is going to be lifted up. It's going to take some moisture with it. And that's when you get those thunderstorms, all this energy built up too, because of all of that available moisture contrasted by the dryness. And so what's that meant in terms of what the Storm Prediction Center is seeing? You're seeing this zone right here, that big dot of orange. That's going to be a threat for severe weather. Not only in terms of hail, we're expecting tennis ball sized hail, that's about 2.5 inches, but also tornadoes being possible in here. So here's our hail index, again, that darker red zone right there. That's on the higher end of our scale. So that's going to show you that, again, tennis ball sized hail is what's expected with that. And some low end tornadoes going to be possible with this too. Again, you have this little darker colors, the SPC graphics are very kind of linear in how they work. Just you have those more vibrant colors. That's those more severe storms. So just want to point that out for you right here. So those are your threats. And here are our ongoing storms in the Midwest. Again, right now we're already seeing severe cells start to pop up. You can see over here, they are going right over my hometown. Great to see that. Hope my mom and dad, I think my mom and dad are doing fine. But yeah, you are seeing these, again, stronger isolated cells pop up. And you notice how it's just very defined line of those isolated pop-up cells here and there, not just big, huge front, kind of more like a QLCS you would see, just big line of storms. But because it's stationary front, they just continually pop up along that line as that warmer air is lifted up over that colder air, bringing some moisture with it too. So you do see these severe thunderstorm warnings being issued here, and as well as these tornado watches and warnings you can see in these flashing zones here. I'll give my little chart a second here. There we go. A destructive thunderstorm warning going from Lafayette down towards Crawford. Again, those are issued only at times when you're seeing, again, those really strong gusts, and on top of that hail, again, 2.5 inch hail. I mean, that's a tennis ball. That thing falls on your car. I mean, that's shattering your windows. It's taking, off your house, the kind of the roofing there. It's going to take a little bit off the plaster on the side too. So that's why you are seeing these more severe these severe warnings being issued and going into the Midwest too. Again, this is a very long, like I showed you earlier on, that entire stationary front sweeping all across the Midwest and over towards the East Coast as we go into the evening. It's only going to sink further south. And what we are also looking for is wind shear. Basically, the long and short of it is we are looking for these areas where you see all this green, the wind going one direction, and then you'll have those red zones, those pockets in there going the other direction. And so when that a zone of shear exists and you see storms run into it, and so we're going to see these severe thunderstorm warnings and destructive thunderstorm warnings being issued there. So we're going to take a little break here from talking about that active severe weather in the Midwest that's going on. We're going to come to Colorado here in a moment. But first, I wanted to talk a little bit more about something different as we transition more towards what we're seeing locally here. We do have a big history of space travel here in Colorado. I wanted to set that up here to kind of a more fun statewide story. One of our favorite state astronauts here from the Front Range has got an interview over on one of our sister stations on the Front Range. So we're going to take a look at that, a little bit more about space travel and her journey. And we're going to come back, we're going to talk local level. We're going to be talking drought here across Colorado. So we'll be right back.
An out-of-this-world goal became a reality for a young girl from Woodland Park, Colorado, unwilling to give up on a dream of one day becoming an astronaut. Tonight, my one-on-one interview with Major Nicole Vapor Ayers, the pilot for NASA's SpaceX Crew 10 mission to the International Space Station, a dream that started in the Springs and launched her all the way to space.
Ignition and liftoff.
March 14, 2025, NASA's Crew 10 mission launched to the ISS for a nearly 6-month mission in space. Right there in the pilot seat, Major Nicole Vapor Ayers.
You know, I was like this big when I started to think about space and wanting to be an astronaut.
A Colorado kid who at night would count the stars in her backyard. You always had an affinity for the sky and for space, but when you were little, You had your eye on a dream. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, I like to say I'm the kid who never outgrew my dream. Watching the Thunderbirds fly over every year, I was like, ooh, that looks awesome. Like, flying sounds great. And then I grew up in the shuttle era where you could fly the shuttle, and I was like, sold. Like, I want to be a pilot astronaut. I want to go fly the shuttle. Air Force Academy is a great way to do that. And I was also a very serious little kid, so I set my goals really high and like had a whole path planned out.
A path that led her from the court at Woodland Park High School to flying F-22 fighter jets in the Air Force Academy. Then in 2021,
That phone call is something else that is a core memory that I will never forget.
that fateful call from NASA while visiting family.
It was Texas, and I was like, oh, like, I'm gonna have to answer this. And I've got Bluetooth connected, and so it's like, I wanna answer this privately, so I'm like trying to disconnect the Bluetooth so I can get onto a private phone call, and Reed Wiseman goes, hey, you still wanna work at NASA? And I was like, is that a trick question?
Are you serious?
And I reached over and grabbed my sister's arm. Total twin thing, like she knew immediately what was happening and immediately that I had gotten the job without me saying a single word on the phone. And she starts crying, and like my mom was in the backseat, she starts crying, and Maddie, my niece, is like, why is everybody crying? But yeah, so just like such a great moment.
A moment that would mark the start of a 4-year journey leading up to Crew 10's launch from Kennedy Space Center.
3, 2, 1.
Sitting in that seat,
Yeah.
the countdown is happening. What is that adrenaline like?
They start fueling the rocket, everything's happening, right? And you're getting ready to go. But we do so much training, and the training it's a great analog. They have an actual capsule that we sit in and we train in all the time, and so it almost feels like a simulator. The only difference is that you can hear the rocket, right? The valves are moving, you can hear the pressure changing, and it is a living machine. And so you're very much aware of the fact that, you're 100 and some odd feet up, and the crew access arm has moved away, right? And you're getting ready to go. So it was funny, I made a comment because most of my crew is afraid of heights. And so I was like, can you imagine how high we are right now? We just can't see,
Hold the phone. You're afraid of heights?
Yes.
You're a pilot and an astronaut and you're afraid of heights. How does that work?
I think I'm more afraid of falling, right? Like you're up on a high structure that could break or you could fall off of, right? Like it's more the falling I think that I'm afraid of. It's not necessarily the heights, but yeah.
After living in zero gravity for 2 weeks.
And now out of the hatch is NASA astronaut Nicole Ayers.
On May 1st, Ayers conducted her first spacewalk.
Get the cables out here.
To assist with maintenance and upgrades to the space station. Let's talk about the 5 hours and 44 minutes that you were outside.
I'll never forget when Ann opened that hatch, I was suddenly vividly aware of just how thin that visor is. Like, oh, that is space right there. And we are in a vacuum.
I mean, how long did it take for you to go, okay, I got this?
Yeah. And it was 10 or 15 minutes, feeling pretty good. Like, yeah, I kept my world small, and so I'd hold on to the handrail and I looked down, I'm like, oh, okay. I'm sure my heart rate spiked, and it took a little while. Your brain is like, we're definitely gonna fall. It's definitely happening. So it takes a little while to come back from that. And I was like, had to keep my world pretty small for an hour or so, kind of build back up to being willing to look out and really enjoy the view. And ultimately, it's a beautiful view.
And the view from the dancing auroras to lightning strikes illuminating the sky beneath her. Ayers captured it all for the world back home to see. The first time that you saw a thunderstorm or the northern lights from that perspective, talk us through like what was going on in your brain in that initial reaction.
Man, it's hard to fathom, but up there you get to see the entire span of the thunderstorm, and it's amazing how many lightning strikes you can see in just a matter of 2 seconds. Same thing with the aurora. Like in Colorado, there was a pretty brilliant aurora a couple months ago, and I happened to be in town for that, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is beautiful. But it's nothing compared to in space. When you're out there, you're working and you're focused.
For the young girls that look at you and they see themselves in you, there is a gravity and a responsibility in that, and one that I'm sure that you take really seriously.
Yeah, I love to say, find whatever you're passionate about, right? And go get really good at that thing. Work really hard at it. So whether it's you want to be an astronaut or an engineer or a mathematician, news broadcaster, right? Like whatever it is, just go work really hard at it, go get good at it, be a really good team player, find some people to surround yourself with, and you can be really successful in life and really get anywhere you want in life.
All right, welcome back. Right before the break, we saw a nice trip to space. One of Colorado's favorite astronauts. So I thought that was a great pack to see. You also got to see that thunderstorm from space, which I thought was very cool. And so let's bring it here to Western Colorado, where we've just had an absurdly hot week for the spring. To be clear, our averages are in those mid-60s for the back end of March. And we hit today, this is today as of recording, again it's the 26th, 85 degrees for our PM high. That is absurd. There's nothing like that. There's just not a point of reference because our previous record was 81 degrees, and that was set all the way back in 1907. 1907, if you can believe it. So over a 100-year record gone, and we've been saying that a few times this week. There's really hasn't been much of an end throughout the past 6 or 7 days or so, ending to this heat wave that we've seen these past few days. This heat dome has been dominant. You saw the earliest 100 degrees in Phoenix. We've already talked about that in a previous episode of the show, which says a lot that I've been able to talk about this same heat, this same system in a different episode of the show that I only record once a week. So across the rest of Western Colorado today, you'll notice that once you get into tomorrow, actually starting to cool down. That's tomorrow on Friday. As you go into the weekend, we're actually starting to lose some of those temperatures. That high pressure zone is heading further over towards the east. And that's a great thing for us because I would personally really like it to feel more like spring. I really do like those, nice cool breeze, start out the year, time of change. But instead of change, we just jump straight to June-like conditions across Western Colorado. So only in those upper 70s and low 80s in the valleys as you get into the weekend. But we're also looking at drought. And what's interesting to note here is that our drought monitor has been upgraded compared to different weeks. We're now in this severe drought zone in the orange here in Grand Junction, moderate drought down towards Montrose, Ridgeway, and Uray. So the big change for that is, again, that's just another up on the scale because we've been going so long without rainfall. Fortunately, that will be changing in our upcoming forecast as we get next week. But snowpack was another thing we've been thinking about all winter long, and we have just been running so low on it. 34% is that where we're at statewide, and that's of normal. Keep in mind, you have the normal amount, that's 100%, and we have less than half of that. We're at 34% of the snowpack that we should have right now. And with all these changes in temperatures and with snowfall, well, you've had a lot of people, especially in the agricultural community, thinking, okay, what am I going to do with this? I think our season is going to have to start a little bit earlier because we are already seeing these warmer conditions, so we can capitalize on that. But at the same time, we have so little water. Again, we're upgrading these drought zones still. We have so little water that we have to think, okay, how do I measure this? How do I balance this? And so those questions are being asked right now here in Grand Junction, too. So our very own Kyle Kawamoto is going to tell you a little bit more about what the agricultural community has been thinking about this heat wave.
Spring has already sprung, but here in the Grand Valley, temperatures are telling us a little bit more of a difference and putting these guys right here ahead of schedule.
The challenge we have is we have a much longer spring frost exposure season than we normally do.
Lately, the weather on the western slope has been in the 80s, which is abnormal here on this side of the state. We spoke with Bruce Talbot from Talbot Farms, and he tells me this weather has put everything, including harvest, 3 weeks ahead of schedule, which also affects their marketing. But there is a bigger issue afoot.
So we've got some real water issues this year. We're tracking with 1977, which is the year that they use for worst case scenario on planning for municipal water, planning for irrigation water. And we will have a longer season, 3-week longer season, and less water to do it with.
Talbot states that irrigation water needs careful management to protect sensitive trees, orchards, and even vineyards.
I would say in the 25 years I've been here in Palisade in growing grapes, that it's been somewhat erratic.
West expresses his concern about the lack of snowpack and its effect on the Colorado River, which is vital for irrigation in the Grand Valley. They will delay crop breaks for peaches and grapes while aiming to minimize water use from the river.
My bigger concern would be people with really beautiful lawns are going to be very tempted to go out and continue to water their lawns, which is a lot of consumption for our green grass.
The owner explains that they will use 15 gallons of water per vine for 7,500 vines, which happens 3 times a year.
If we don't have the water to grow the produce, there's nothing to sell. And there's nothing for people to enjoy.
Producers tell me that a mild winter may lead to increased pest pressure this year, especially if humidity is low and dust is high. Kyle Kawamoto, KREX News.
Okay, I wanted to take a quick look at our future forecast before we close out the show. Again, a lot of red flag warnings across Colorado because of how dry we've been. So fire weather concerns have started to jump up a lot more, but still out of that area as of recording, again, on the 26th here in Mesa, Delta, and Montrose counties. So let's look at our future cast. Again, we're cooling down overall. Not too many clouds in the skies. You get into the weekend, but you are seeing a little bit of rain pop up towards the corner of our screen. I think I'm covering it up right now, but that's really over towards the front range. You know, a little bit more clouds, a little bit more upper level moisture being introduced as you move into early next week. And then once you get to Sunday, again, you're seeing some rainfall start to go in there. A little bit of a spare thunderstorm in there too, up towards the Park Range. What's that meaning? The high pressure, again, is starting to fall apart, getting out of our areas, opening us up to some fronts moving across Colorado. I know you're excited to see that down towards the San Juans. Finally some rain and some mountain snowfall as we move into the next few days. A little bit getting into Montrose too. But it's really going to be on Tuesday. That's going to be our big day kind of here locally in Grand Junction and across Colorado. That's when you're expecting those highest rainfall totals, but it is going to start as soon as Sunday night, overnight into Monday. And so let's look at our regional forecast again. It's going to remain very dry up until that point. And then to look over towards our east again, that is going to be going all night. Those severe storms we talked about all across the Midwest that we'll be keeping a very close eye on here in the studio. And again, I suspect what we'll be talking about next week is Tuesday. Tuesday is our big day of rainfall where we start to pick it up and moving on into the midweek. So I'm very excited to see that here. Again, if you have any emails for me, let me know. I'll be happy to feature your pictures and your weather questions here on air. I know last week we had a segment from Dalen answering some science questions. He will be back next week. So we'll be very excited and looking forward towards that. Thank you for watching this episode of Weather Eye, where we took a look at, of course, the heat here in Colorado, but quite the opposite over towards Hawaii and the Midwest. So all across the country, lots of different weather. So thank you for watching this week, and we'll be back for the next one.